So much news this week. Where do we get started? It's the For Virginia podcast. Here we go. Thanks for tuning in to the For Virginia podcast for the week ending September 24th, 2016. This is show number 88. I'm your host, Michael Brandon Wade. Thanks for tuning in. For Virginia is a Virginia State Political Action Committee focused on supporting progressive causes and candidates at the local and state level. Our weekly podcast is meant to inform you with news and analysis of politics around the state, helping you get the information you need to be an informed citizen, battle right-wing propaganda, and to help progressives organize and activate where we are most needed. What a week. If you're not in the southeastern part of the state and might not have heard what's going on with Delegate Morris of the Suffolk and Isle of Wight area, we'll get into that a little bit later today. Needless to say, a lot of stuff just upending politics in the state this week. We've got some updates on the Hampton Regional Jail, Delegate Sam Razul's top two primary legislation, and Williamsburg Senator Tommy Norment threatening a group home. We've got updates on the rest of the week's news as well. In a quick update on the Hampton Ridge Regional Jail, we've got confirmation from the pilot that the Department of Justice's Special Litigation Section is investigating the jail. This is following several deaths in custody, including 24-year-old Jemichael Mitchell, who was arrested for stealing $5 worth of junk food at a Portsmouth 7-Eleven. Mitchell wasted away in his cell after awaiting transfer to a mental health hospital. Also, Henry Stewart, 60 years old, who died after filing several emergency requests for medical treatment. Also, Mark Goodrum, another 6-year-old man who was arrested for smoking marijuana in his home, could not pay a $100 bail and had a stroke and died in custody. Several investigations into Jemichael Mitchell's death have turned up no wrongdoing. No jail staff have been fired. None of the jail board members have been held accountable. Former Superintendent David Simons announced he would resign last week, but the jail board's personnel committee voted to accept his resignation immediately. This was following a call for investigation by the Justice Department from Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring. So far, nothing. We'll continue to monitor the story and fill you in as details come to light. We've also brought you news about the fiscal crisis in the city of Petersburg, Virginia. The city, facing a $12 million shortfall in their municipal budget, took extraordinary steps to fix it, including tax increases and spending cuts. After public anger erupted at calls to shut down a local fire department, Petersburg City Council members have agreed to a $4.1 million cut to city schools, reductions in city salaries, museums, and public services. At one point, they were also looking at cutting off maintenance to city vehicles and repossession of fire equipment. There's already been a lawsuit filed by the South Central Wastewater Authority for $1.2 million owed for back sewer bills from the city. The SCWA said that the city has failed to pay for any wastewater services since May, and they're filing this lawsuit to recover past due amounts and to request that the court appoint a receiver to supervise billing and collection of fees from Petersburg residents. Petersburg also apparently has a strategy of publicizing the names of delinquent taxpayers in a local newspaper. And Petersburg Treasurer says not only is the strategy working, but they are preparing to release another wave of names. As you would expect, this has infuriated some residents, but given the city's backlog, I doubt there will be any change. The city did at one point approach the state government for a bailout, which was strongly rejected. but has left some state lawmakers wondering if this sort of action will be taken by other state municipalities and what the state can do in order to protect itself from these type of fiscal crises. This is especially important in light of the state's $1.6 billion budget deficit for this fiscal year. Williamsburg Senate Majority Leader Tommy Norment has threatened state funding for area mental health services over the location of a controversial group home in his district. Mr. Norment has been accused of threatening funding for this group home after getting some pushback from local residents. The group home seems to be located near elite Walsingham Academy and has basically threatened to cut all funding for the group home because of its location. Norment recently wrote a letter to the executive director at Hampton Newport News Community Services Board, which oversees state-funded mental health treatment in the area. Also copied on the letter was Newport News / Williamsburg delegate and current state Senate candidate Monty Mason, who said he believes the home's location is a poor one, partly because poor communication on the front end helped generate acrimony in the neighborhood. That's quoted from the Daily Press. Homes in the area are in the $450,000 range. Monty Mason is currently resigned from his delegate seat in order to run for the 1st Virginia Senate District, which was vacated following Senator John Miller's death earlier this year. The group home would house up to 8 people, including staff, and would not be open to sex offenders, but that information was not necessarily made available to the residents when the announcement was made of the house. This ties into the Hampton Roads Regional Jail because these would be outpatients from Eastern State Medical Hospital, which receives the transfers from Hampton Roads Regional Jail. Informed listeners might also recall that Gus Deeds, son of State Senator Cree Deeds, was turned away from Eastern State Hospital because of a lack of bed space. This is right before Gus Deeds stabbed his father and committed suicide. It was all over the news about a year, maybe 2 years ago. Next item, Norfolk builder Ronnie Boone Sr. pled guilty to bribing Norfolk Treasurer Anthony Burfoot and, according to the pilot, 2 other unnamed city officials. Faces up to 35 years in prison, over $1 million in fines, even though it's expected he will get far less. Sentencing hearing is scheduled for the 26th in Norfolk. Burfoot is currently awaiting trial on various public corruption and perjury charges. While he was vice mayor, his lawyer issued a denial, claiming that this was simply a matter of finger-pointing for a reduced sentence. According to the court, Boone asked Burfoot for help with various city matters between 2004 and 2013. After Burfoot was elected treasurer, in exchange, Burfoot demanded cash, meals, assistance, hosting events where Burfoot would profit, and free use of Boone's beach house in Kitty Hawk, which apparently is a $3,200 a week rental. Nice, must be right on the water. $20,000 in undocumented loans, and other quid pro quo relationships with city officials. And the Virginia State Police is experiencing severe manpower shortages, citing over 220 unfilled positions for state troopers. 103 sworn employees, meaning officers, and 76 civilian employees have left the department, leaving 116 sworn vacancies. The department has 44 troopers in training for a class set to graduate in November, and another class with 60 students that will graduate in 6 months. The trainees are actually counted as employees and are not included in the vacancies. So the 116 sworn vacancies are actually 220 troopers short. The state trooper starting salary is a paltry $36,000, among the lowest in the state, and the majority of those leaving are doing so to seek better paying jobs in other local, state, and federal agencies. Applications to join the state police have fallen 48% since January, have been exacerbated by news of state revenue shortfalls that would prevent 3% pay raises, leaving policing deficits on state roadways that will make highway safety unsustainable in the long term. This is sure to be exacerbated by the $1.6 billion state budget we mentioned earlier. A Greene County man has announced his intention to seek the Republican nomination for the 58th District State House seat following Delegate Bob Bell's decision to seek Attorney General in 2017. Mike Allers made his announcement Wednesday to seek the position. Allers has been in education for 20 years, currently teaches fourth grade at an elementary school in Orange County, has served as principal at several schools as well as assistant principal, is anti-Common Core, and has not held political office. And finally, but before we get into this week's shame, we want to talk about Delegate Sam Razul, who has filed legislation for a constitutional amendment to replace Virginia's closed primary systems with a top two primary legislation. This type of primary is used in other states in the nation where all voters are allowed to vote for any candidate they choose, and the two candidates who receive the most votes basically go into a runoff. So in situations where you have maybe two Democrats and a Republican running during the primary season, if the two Democrats get more votes than the Republican, then the general election will actually be between the two Democrats or two Republicans if it goes that way. Razul actually introduced similar legislation last year, hoping to limit the influence of political parties in primaries by combining all of the candidates for a specific state office into one ballot, and then the two top vote getters would advance to the general. Same systems are in use in places like Louisiana, California, Nebraska, and Washington. You can go to openprimaries.org for more information about 10 other states that are introducing legislation for top two nonpartisan elections. We're all in favor of this type of system, but partisan politics probably precludes such a possibility. Such a constitutional amendment would require majority votes in two successive sessions of the General Assembly in order to go to public ballot. Speaking of constitutional amendments, Amendment 1, the Right to Work for Less Amendment, will be on this November's ballot. Please see the show note links for information on why this is bad for Virginia, why right for work is bad for workers, and why we should all vote no November 8th. This is the For Virginia podcast. We'll be right back. I'm Michael Brand Wade. This is the For Virginia podcast. As always, we'd like to ask that you go to our website at forvirginia.org, where we'll be posting show notes with links to all of the sources that we referenced today on the show. Please share this podcast on social media, follow us on Facebook, and help us get the word out. We'd also like to hear any feedback on the show, any news tips that you have as well. Please leave a comment on the video, email info@forvirginia.org, or contact us on Facebook if you're interested in helping the progressive revolution in Virginia. And if you like what we're doing and would like to support our broadcast, please head on over to our Act Blue page and make a donation. Thanks again for your support. Well, there's absolutely no question as to who gets this week's shame, so let's get right into it. This is really near and dear to me this week, since it's practically in my hometown of Smithfield, Isle of Wight County. State Delegate Richard Morris has just had a really bad week, apparently. We got word earlier this week, about Tuesday or Wednesday, that he'd been arrested for charges involving child endangerment, but after the authorities followed up on this matter, he was hit with a grand total of 6 felony charges, including child abuse and assault related to a boy and a woman, both family members. 3 new felony counts of cruelty and injuries to children, and 3 felony counts of child endangerment. 3 misdemeanor counts of domestic assault involving a minor, and 2 domestic counts of domestic assault involving an adult-age woman. Male juvenile victim who was allegedly assaulted and had injuries, quote, injuries consistent with excessive physical discipline. This is all according to the Daily Press, but this has been all over the Daily Press, the Virginian Pilot, the Suffolk local newspaper, and it's getting picked up all over the state. I mean, this is really just an incredible story. I hope that the children are safe, and if it's a woman, I mean, I don't know if that's his wife or adult-aged daughter. 2 counts of assault and battery on a family member. Was arrested Tuesday evening and released from the Western Tidewater Regional Jail on a $1,500 bond. So apparently what happened was that the boy ran away from home after being disciplined, was picked up by Child Protective Services, and then all this stuff came out. According to the pilot, the boy told police that Morris hit him with a belt and wooden spoon, forced him to sit and stand in the corner for hours as punishment for lying about doing his chores. The boy also said he was in bed sleeping earlier this year when Morris woke him up and punched him. And a woman told police that Morris assaulted her several times inside the home. Now, on the hypocrisy side of things, Morris is currently listed as co-patron on HB 963, the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. Prohibits an abortion after 20 weeks gestation because fetuses can feel pain. Morris also compared abortion to slavery. Probably what was also a warning sign was that he has spoken in favor of fair treatment for college students accused of on-campus assaults. And for bonus points, he was the past treasurer of the Southeastern Hampton Roads CASA, which is a group of volunteers, I'm assuming attorneys, who represent abused and neglected children in the courts. No comment from KASA. A felony conviction would disqualify him from being elected to the legislature under the Virginia Constitution, but not necessarily from finishing his term. It all ties back into this restoration of rights, man. You know, the Daily Press mentions Joe Morrissey, who's currently running for Richmond mayor, who pled down from felony charges to misdemeanor, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. He was stripped of committee memberships, and Democrats kicked him out of their caucus, even though Morrissey still attended floor sessions. So, I mean, this guy could potentially stay in the House of Delegates. But just today, Virginia House leaders called for him to resign. Quoting from the pilot, House Speaker William Howell, Majority Leader Kirk Cox, Caucus Chairman Timothy Hugo, Majority Whip Jackson Miller, and Deputy Majority Leader Todd Gilmert issued a statement saying, quote, "We are deeply concerned by the charges against Delegate Rick Morris. While we all believe that individuals are innocent until proven guilty and entitled to their day in court, these are serious and troubling allegations. Accordingly, we have asked Delegate Morris to resign his seat effective immediately. He needs this time to focus on his personal and family life, and we pray for the comfort and healing of everyone involved in the situation." No doubt. Now, we don't have the specific details of what a resignation would mean. I would wager that it is too late in the 2016 election cycle for anything to happen for the November election. I'll check on that and get back to you on it before next week's show. So what I believe would probably wind up happening is that there would be a special election between November and when the General Assembly goes into session later this year, so sometime in December. Progressive House VA has made this District 64, which runs through majority of Isle of Wight County and parts of Suffolk, has made it their number one priority for potential candidates. So if you live in the district or know anyone that does, that would be interested in running this, please get in contact with us and let us know. We really want to challenge this seat when no matter what happens. If he decides he's going to stay in it till the end of his term in 2017, so be it. But we really need to have some good progressive Democrats that can stand up and run for the seat. Got a lot of smaller towns in Alawite County, Windsor, Ivor, Franklin, I believe, that are all there. The entire city of Smithfield, Carrollton, you know who you guys are. We've got a map we're going to link. But I've been looking at this guy's mugshot all week, and he's got to go. And we've got to get somebody in there. This is going to be a test. I didn't really get into it earlier. I talked about Monty Mason with regards to the group home thing with Tommy Norment. And going back to that for a moment, it seems like they're challenging this group home basically because it's a not in my backyard situation. So you're talking about 8 people who are not sex offenders, who are unsupervised released or whatever you want to call it from a mental health institution, and some local residents got up in arms. And I'm not saying that they don't have the right to get upset about it, but I think that the methods that Norman is using to fight that is a little heavy-handed. And Monty Mason, who has resigned from the 93rd delegate seat out there and who's running for Senate, I don't know what his take on this is. I'm not going to be cynical about it or anything like that, but the reason I bring it up is because that seat is available, and there's a special election going on this November for that seat. Mike Mullins is the Democratic candidate out of Newport News. He's an attorney. We're going to have him on the show either next week or week after. But all these special elections, these are going to be either keepers or possible turnovers for the Democrats, and we need to turn that House blue in order to get some redistricting done in 2021. We need to keep the state Senate the way it is, or pick up some seats so that we can have the majority over there, get Medicaid expansion done, get clean power plan or regional greenhouse gas. These special elections and these individual seats, this is our test for the next year. And so Delegate Rick Morris is handing us an opportunity. And I'm not going to make light of the situation with regards to his family. I can only imagine. But these are serious stakes, and this is serious business, and that's why we're here every week. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to have some audio from the governor's speech here at Jefferson Lab this week. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. This is the For Virginia podcast. I actually had the pleasure this week of seeing Governor McAuliffe at Jefferson Lab here in Newport News. They were hosting a cybersecurity conference, 3-day conference on physical systems, protecting our nation's infrastructure, power companies, and other industrial controls. And McAuliffe was there and gave a nice little speech. I want to play a little bit of it for you here to close out the show. He was talking about Virginia and our reliance on the federal government, and then he goes on from there. Here you go.
Virginia, as you know, is the #1 recipient of Department of Defense dollars, #1 of all 50 states. Obviously, 27 military installations, the largest naval base in the world, the Pentagon, CIA, Quantico, Langley, Oceana, all those assets here in Virginia. Great news when they're spending money. And I think for a very long time, we in Virginia relied upon that military spending, said, oh, we're the best for this and that, and the money just came in. But then in 2011, we had sequestration. In 11 through 13, Virginia saw a $9.8 billion cut in Virginia in defense spending, direct, not indirect, direct spending. Huge impact, mostly Northern Virginia, but also the Hampton Roads region. It equated to a loss of about 115,000 jobs. Devastating. A year from October, 1 year away, the second round of sequestration is supposed to hit. I have no idea. I hope the new president and the new Congress get their act together to deal with it. But if we do not get it worked out and sequestration hits, and I should tell you, the new budget they're talking about for the extensions does not include sequestration level cuts in the budget they're proposing right now. But if we don't get that resolved, that next round of sequestration will be much worse than what we faced in 11 through 13. Devastating cuts. That's why I talk about constantly building the new Virginia economy. We've had a lot of success. I'm sure you've all, just yesterday I announced, very proud, our unemployment rate was 3.9. We are now the lowest unemployment rate of any major state in the United States of America. That's after having gone through sequestration. Well, we are one of only 4 states in America that saw significant job growth last month. Our unemployment has gone from 5.4 down to 3.9 since I became governor. I'm very proud, the lowest drop in 32 years, if you were counting. Very important. We take a lot of pride in that. And since I've been governor, we've created 166,600 new jobs. We have brought $13.88 billion of new capital to the Commonwealth, not counting the $5 billion more than any governor in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I still have a year and 3 months to go, so I'm pretty fired up. And you should be too, because it's a lot of great economic activity. And we have been so successful in bringing in businesses from all over the globe. I'm the most traveled governor in the United States of America. People say, well, why do you travel so much? Well, as you know, 95% of the world's customers live outside the United States of America. 81% of the growth over the next 10 years will occur outside America. So we go out and bring those businesses back here to the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we've had a lot of success as it relates to cybersecurity companies. And I want us to be the global leader as it relates to cybersecurity. We now have 650 cyber companies here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That is an increase of 200 since 2011. So we have significant growth going on here in the Commonwealth. And as you know, in the cybersecurity field, they say the employment growth will be 25% between now and 2022. Now, the national rate of growth will be 17%. So obviously this makes sense to get in that sweet spot, because as we all know this, the federal government's going to spend billions and billions of dollars, the private sector is going to spend billions, and we're going to spend a lot of money. This is the place that we all need to be, and that's why you're here today. So I am leaning in. I went to the National Cyber, the RSA convention this year we had in San Francisco. I was very proud, the only governor in the United States of America to actually go to the conference. So for me, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, man. I had this whole conference all to myself. I was tackling people walking down the hallways. Have you been to Virginia? No, we need to come to Virginia. Let's be honest, we do have it all here. 1607, it started here, those 3 ships. They didn't go, that little dinky rock up in, what is that, Massachusetts, Plymouth. That was 1619. We were 1607. So I really worked that conference, talked about our cyber assets, but no. Also told 281 wineries now in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We've just moved into the 5th place on wine production. Think of that. We've gone from nowhere to 5th place. It's California, Oregon, Washington, New York, and now us. New York doesn't count. They use their grapes for jelly. We don't do that. We use ours for wine. By the time I'm done, they're going to think Napa is an auto parts company. So I'm getting all this going. I opened up our 182nd craft brewery the other day. We have 42 distilleries and 10 cideries. I just announced our 8th variety of oysters. We are now the leaders on the East Coast for oysters. So listen to me, folks. You eat our oysters. You drink our wine and our beer. You put them together. Virginia is for lovers. You figure out the next step. I can only do so much as governor. But at that conference, it works, I'm telling you. Taxes, business friendly, oysters, I get it. Why not? And, mountains and ocean, we got it all here. We got Jefferson Labs.
So McAuliffe's actually pretty funny. I saw him at the state Democratic convention, and he's a real good speaker. I was surprised, to be honest, but I want to give you guys this little bit here at the end, because if you're trying to figure out what you want to do, or you have children or whatever, looking for careers, and I'm biased because I'm in IT and I was there professionally, so but you need to hear this. So
economic development, growing, is so important. But the other big piece of this, folks, is changing our education system. In Virginia today, We have, believe it or not, 37,000 jobs open right now in the high-tech space. Within that, we have 17,000 cyber jobs, starting pay about $88,000. Now, I got to tell you, we got to fix all of that, because this is a huge economic driver for us as we go forward. That is $3 billion a year of annual payroll. It's about $120 million to our state budget of tax revenue that we are foregoing, that we are not collecting because we haven't filled these jobs. So that has been our big mission. That's why we put all this money in the budget of all these great incentive programs. We're changing them. We're changing our high schools. They don't work anymore. They don't work anywhere in America. They're big buildings with classrooms with seats. They don't work. Redesigning all of them. STEM courses earlier. We've had computer coach to our SOL tests now. We're changing how we think about education. Your first 2 years at high school, take your core courses. Then we want you out working in industry. I'd rather have you out working in a cyber company. Getting a little practical life experience. You ought to know the second you walk into 5th grade that we have all these cyber jobs open, starting paying $88,000. I tell every parent, you're all too young, but there was a movie called The Graduate at one point. Richard and I probably remember. Isn't it a key phrase? You and I are probably the only ones here, buddy. Plastics was it. I tell everybody now, it is cyber, because these are the jobs of the future. We have got to get in the game to make sure we're redesigning our education system so we're putting that skill set and matching it to the jobs that exist today. It's not a question, Virginia, about great jobs. We have, as I say now, the lowest unemployment of any major state in America. But in addition, I have 37,000 open jobs in technology.
That's all the time we've got for this week. We appreciate everyone that tuned in. Thank you for your support and all your shares. Please check out our website, share us on social media, and your financial support is always appreciated. This is the For Virginia Podcast, episode 8. Please submit your feedback on our website, on Facebook, or by emailing info@forvirginia.org. We'll continue working hard to bring you the news, information, and analysis to keep the progressive revolution moving forward in Virginia through 2017. My name is Michael Brandon Wade. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.